So, we're ready to go. Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Rohan's Life, and you are watching yet an. Okay, let me start again. Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Rohan's Life, and you're watching yet another honest book review. Actually, before I start, you will like this t-shirt. It says, "To reach the top, we must stand on the books we've read." I thought maybe to make this shirt to give this video more book-like feel. Today I'm going to be giving my honest review on the book Time for Mercy by John Grisham. If you've watched my last honest book review video where I reviewed Sycamore Row by John Grisham, I mentioned that I had this book, A Time for Mercy, and have finished it, and to let you know to stay tuned for the book review. So that's what I'm giving you today. Today I'm going to be giving you that book review of A Time for Mercy. This is the most recent and the third book of the 3-book series with the main character Jake Bridgens, which you would be very familiar with from the last book review video. So this is the most recent one, probably my favorite one so far. I still have yet to read the first one as well, which I really want to do, and that's the next book I have in mind to buy. For now, this is A Time for Mercy. In true fashion of my honest book reviews, I'm not going to give too many spoilers as to how the story ends, how the verdict is, who won the case and who doesn't, because I'd rather have you find out yourself how the story ends as well. So do keep that in mind. Deputy Stuart Colford is a protected man, though he turned his drunken rages on his girlfriend Josie and her children many times before. The police code of silence has always shielded him. But one night he goes too far, leaving Josie for dead on the floor. Before he passes out, her son, a 16-year-old Drew, knows that he only has this one chance to save himself and his family. He picks up a gun and takes the law into his own hands. In Clanton, Mississippi, there is no one more hated than a cop killer. But a cop killer's defense lawyer comes close. Jake Bridgens doesn't want this impossible case, but he's the only one with enough experience to defend the boy. As the trial begins, it seems the gas chamber is inevitable for Drew, but as the town of Clanton discovers once again, when Jake Bridgens takes on an impossible case, anything is possible. As I've referenced in my last video, Jake Bridgens is the main character that all 3 of the books in the series are created around based on his life. In this book, Jake Bridgens is assigned with a case about a 16-year-old boy, Drew Gamble, who is on trial due to shooting a cop. Before I begin even further, again, in John Grisham fashion, a little bit of a disclaimer that this book does contain elements such as blood, gore, sexual abuse, and domestic violence, so if any of these trigger you, then feel free to click out of the video or skip ahead. So this book is a little bit of context is in this book in particular, it's based around a family of 3 who have had a very rocky life. One is a mother named Josie Gamble, the second is a 16-year-old boy named Drew Gamble, and the third is the youngest, Drew's sister, which is Kira Gamble, age 14. These 3 people's lives have been very difficult from the very start. Josie Gamble had gotten pregnant at the age of 16 and had first given birth to Drew Gamble, and then 2 years later Kira Gamble. But what Drew and Kira don't at all know is that they are children of 2 completely different fathers. I feel like, in my opinion, should have actually been able to be instantly identified, because when you read this book, it tells a lot about how different Drew and Kira actually look like, with Drew looking almost like an 8-year-old child for being a 16-year-old, not fully developed, physically immature, and with Kira looking a lot more mature for her age of 14. And what happens is Josie Gamble, the mother of the 2 children, meets a deputy in the same county, Ford County, Clanton, Mississippi, same same location as the last book. Josie Gamble meets a deputy named Stuart Cofer, and they both meet at a bar which is kind of suited for the both of them, as Josie has a past in drug dealing and Stuart Gamble also has a history of drinking problem. But we'll get into that a bit later. Two of them hit it off, and Stuart invites Josie to move in with him. And Josie, being the mother of two kids, persuades Stuart Cofer to bring in Josie's two children, and he was quite reluctant about it because he had no interest whatsoever about being a father or housing kids for that matter. Things go on, the children move in, and things are going decently. I wouldn't say amazing, I wouldn't be saying bad, but they're going okay. Until Stuart Cofer begins to complain about the fees of the two children and forces the children's mother, Josie Gamble, to start paying for their expenses as if they're almost living on rent for him. Stuart Cofer in Clanton, Mississippi, Ford County, he's one of the favorite deputies. He's strong, he's courageous, and he is always in the firing line and not afraid to get hurt. However, with him in his personal life, he is a completely different person, because in his personal life he has a serious drinking problem, and usually he would come home late, very drunk and very tipsy, and would do multiple things like threaten the children, threaten Josie, and even beat Josie. So a lot of domestic violence and threats were not an uncommon thing in that house. One day, Stuart Cofer comes home from a bar extremely drunk and actually has a score of, I think, 36 or 30.6, which is actually in this town of Ford County is the highest the alcohol level has ever been for any human being. He starts accusing Josie Gamble of numerous things, like cheating on him and hating him, wanting to move out. She is not having it at all. So long story short, it results in a fight with Stuart Cofer being a lot stronger than Josie Gamble and knocking her out. You may be wondering where the two children are. Well, Josie and Drew are actually in their rooms locking their doors because they know what's going on and they're trying to protect themselves. Once everything goes quiet in the house, the two children decide to come out of their rooms and look around the house for their mother to see if she's okay. And that's when they find her lying on the floor. She isn't breathing, she doesn't have a pulse, and Kira is trying to revive her mother while Drew roams around the house looking for whatever it is he's looking for. Then this is where the plot goes. Drew Gamble goes into Stuart Cofer's bedroom, where Stuart is passed out drunk on his bed. Drew notices that there is a pistol from Stuart's duty as a deputy, grabs that pistol and aims it at Stuart Cofer's head, and as the blurb says, Drew picks up the gun and takes the law into his own hands. Long story short, cops get in, start investigating. Drew and Kira are taken into police custody, and Josie is taken to the hospital, where they later learn that Josie Gamble is alive and that she is okay. This criminal case becomes public all around Ford County, and every single lawyer in the county is avoiding the phones, the telephones, whatever the cost, because they know that if it rings, a very high likelihood that the case is going to be assigned to them. This is what they call unpopular cases, the ones that are very risky, the ones where one lawyer won't have that much support, and they could get a lot of backlash for it. These are the kind of cases that most lawyers want to avoid. Well, from what I've read in these books, it seems like these are the cases that lawyers are trying to avoid. Jake Bridgens, or Jake Brigance, but like I've said, I call it Jake Bridgens, gets advised by his friend Harry Rex to not at all pick up the phone and leave the county as soon as possible before the judge who is in charge of the case Omar Noose, which is a very close friend of Jake's, assigns him to it. What happens is Jake picks up the phone, but with a lot of hesitancy, is Omar Noose calling. And Omar persuades Jake a lot, repeatedly, and very persistently to get Jake to take the case. And Omar Noose tries to convince him that Jake will only be Drew's lawyer for the preliminaries before getting replacements in to take on the rest of the case. Unfortunately, in Jake's favor, does not happen. Jake later learns that he's going to be stuck with Drew Gamble's case for quite a while, and at first things are quite impossible because everyone in Ford County is kind of against Jake because everyone is on Stuart Cofer's side and they feel sympathy for him since he was the one who got shot. And Jake is actually really good friends with all the cops in the county, and pretty much all of them now have turned against him, and he is now the unpopular lawyer in the county. So at this point, Jake is lost pretty much, and he doesn't know how to go about this case and is very close to giving up. As time goes on, Jake makes a lot more enemies on the family side of Stuart Cofer, because one day Jake is out buying groceries for his family, Carla and Tana, as I've mentioned before, and on his way out he actually gets beaten up. Now, this is kind of nature where he gets assaulted and gets backlash is actually not of uncommon nature, because in the first book of the series where this book is included, the first book is named A Time to Kill. And in A Time to Kill, as I've mentioned before, Jake defends a person of color who has killed 2 people. And he gets the very unpopular case and he gets a lot of backlash, and the people who are against him actually burnt his house down in the first book and had gotten numerous threats from them, and even actually got shot at, but someone had saved him. It's been about 5 years ever since, in storyline wise, ever since Jake has actually gotten any assault or any attack from the opposing side. He gets beaten up by 2 people, one of them being named Cecil Cofer, which is Stuart Cofer's brother, and the other is an unknown person. Now, Jake gets entered into the hospital, recuperates back to health, and Judge Omar Noose is not at all happy. Jake seems like everything is all lost until he figures out something extremely important that's going to really help him out in the later case to come. He finds out that apparently, again, before I go on with this is where I mentioned that there will be a mention of rape and sexual abuse towards a minor, so please be aware of that. Jake notices how Kira, who is the sister of the defendant Drew Gamble, gets very sick and starts vomiting very often, and he finally figures out that she is actually pregnant. But not only pregnant, but pregnant with the baby of none other than Stuart Cofer. That is right. So it turns out while the 3, Josie, Kira, and Drew were living with Stuart Cofer, he had been sexually assaulting Kira and taking advantage of her. And due to that, that is how she became pregnant. At the time, Josie and Kira, since they're not the ones getting arrested and they're in jail, Drew is actually at the prison waiting trial, and Josie and Kira, since they have nowhere left to go, they stay at a public church. And the first thing on Josie's mind is that she wants to get Kira to get an abortion. Since they're in a church, if they were to get an abortion, they were no longer welcome in that church. Jake and his wife, Carla, have been trying to have a child for a very long time, a second child, but they have been unsuccessful. Now, I'm not gonna reveal what happens on that front, but based on the information I've given you, I'll let your imagination run wild for you to figure out, or simply just get the book for yourself. Throughout the entire book, it's kind of a debate on whether what Drew Gamble has done has been completely justified, just like the trial of Carly Haley in the first book, A Time to Kill. So Jake is trying to tell the jury that what Drew Gamble did is completely justified and it was all in an act to protect his family, while the opposing side is going to prove that that Drew Gamble is completely guilty, did it deliberately, and that he should get sent to the gas chamber. These books are written in roughly 1970 to 1980, 1990, where the death penalty was widely used and commonly used, and the method in this book that they're going to get Drew in is the gas chamber. So that is the book for you, and now is the part for my honest review, and my honest review is, again, seriously, I think there's never a dull moment with this author, John Grisham, because all of his books is so interesting, and once you get to know all of the characters, you just get glued to them, and you keep coming back to the books just for the characters, because when you read a book series that's all about a person's life, it's like you're kind of part of that life, and you get to know everything that happens to that person, and that's what I really enjoy in books, especially book series, is that you get to see a character's evolution develop throughout the course of a few books, and it's such a fun experience. And not to mention all of John Grisham's other books, they're all based around the law, based around laws, lawyers, courtrooms, judges, and I've developed a little bit of an interest in that lately, and I think John Grisham is the perfect author for people who are into law and people who just want an entertaining book. John Grisham really is the best thriller writer alive. That is my honest review of A Time for Mercy, and stay tuned for my next honest book review. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I really do recommend these books to all of you, and you'll enjoy them just as much as I did. So thank you so much for watching. This is Rohan's Life, or Rohan's Honest Book Reviews, signing off for now, and have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one. See you guys.